Action!
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of All Talk. My name is Mike All. Thank you so much for stopping by. I have a great comic and friend tonight that I'm excited to sit and talk with and get caught up. He's a Denver-based comedian. He's been doing it for a long time. Traveled, he hits all the festivals. He's a very funny guy. He does a Monday, Wednesday, Friday show. Just an afternoon stream on his Facebook page at 3 p.m. Mountain Time. And he also does another thing, Hippie Man Plans for America. Please welcome John Novasad. How's it going, John? Good to see you.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me on your podcast, man. I'm doing well. How are you? Good?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm glad to be here, healthy and safe, and talking with you. So
yeah, same for me. I'm healthy and safe and happy to be talking to you. So it's good.
So I feel like we should. I want to address it off the top because I got Hippie Man's Plans for America. For the longest time, you were known as John Hippie Man Novasad, and you dropped the Hippie Man about 4 or 5 years ago now.
Yeah, I did.
Was that a tough choice for you to? Because I mean, you were Hippie Man for a long time. I mean, that's how everybody knew you. Was that a tough decision for you to make? And how long did it take people to kind of hop on board with it?
Yeah, it was a tough decision to make. I bet you I was Hippie Man. I used the stage name Hippie Man for probably 20 years, something like that. And the decision was tough to make, and it took me years to make it, because I thought about it for a long time. And one of the things that I'm going to name drop a little bit, but I featured for Al Madrigal at the Comedy Works, and Al was in a show. What was it called? Something. Oh man, I can't remember the name of it. But we had a mutual friend who was a producer on that show, and so we did 2 shows, and they just introduced me as Hippie Man. So I'm talking to Al Madrigal in the green room of the Comedy Works in between shows, and he goes, "What's your real name?" And I was like, "John Novasad." And he goes, "Man, I like you so much better as John Novasad." Yeah. And he goes, he gave this hypothetical situation. He was like, "What if you sat in the screen room the whole time that they were seating the audience, and the audience never saw you, the fresh audience never saw you. And then they introduce you as Hippie Man." He goes, "Whatever it is, how a tenth of, 5/10 of a second or whatever it takes you to get on stage, they make a judgment about that name right off the bat. But if they introduce you as John Novasad and you walk out looking like this," he goes, "they know you're a hippie. It's like you're giving away the surprise." And even after he said that to me, which really rang true, it was at least 2 or 2.5 years before I went John Novasad. So I thought about it for a long time.
Was Al kind of the first person that put you into that head or into your head, or you had been thinking about it at that point a little bit?
I had been thinking about it, and it's funny because I wouldn't say it was 50-50, but there people were really opinionated about it. So yeah, there were other people that were like, "Dude, you should be John Novasad." And ultimately what I decided was at this point, or when I changed, those years ago, that the name Hippie Man sounded like a nostalgia act to me. Like people would expect me to come out in bell bottoms with a, protest sign. And I was like, man, I don't want to be that, even if that's not what I am. So, and it's pretty much the same. I mean, I've changed a little bit, but, I do a lot of the same stuff.
Did you, were you always Hippie Man? Did you start out, or had you been doing it for a while before you took on that persona?
No, I had been doing it for a while. I bet you I was doing stand-up for like 8 years before I came up with it. And one of the reasons I came up with it was because I used to work this club called the Comedy Isle in San Diego. And right next to they put us up in a resort and stuff. It was nice. Right next, or a couple blocks from the resort, there was a place called Dead Headquarters. And they sold all kinds of tie-dyed stuff. They had tie-dyed, like, long underwear. And so I was married at the time, and I told my wife, I go, man, I'm going to do a character called Hippie Man. I don't know what made the long johns that were tie-dyed made me think of a superhero. So I bought a couple different pairs of those, tie-dyed shirt and stuff, and I had a cape made with a peace sign on it. And it was funny because my wife, one of the reasons, this tells you about marriage, and I'm divorced now for a long time, but she was like, you'll never do it. And I mean, that just inspired me. Because then, I mean, what I did was I had tearaway clothes. I was wearing it all underneath, the superhero tie-dyed costume underneath, and tearaway clothes. So, and then I ended up doing that closer for God forever, with all the wearing and I found tie-dye tights. I mean, it evolved over the years so that it was easier to travel with. But one of the reasons this was before I quit being Hippie Man, but I quit doing that big closer was the summers would kill me, man. Even in an air-conditioned comedy club, I'm wearing all that stuff under clothes and,
Right.
It was just too much. So then
and you're a public transportation guy too. So if it's like 85, even if it's 85 degrees out in Colorado, it's going to feel like 95 degrees, and you're walking over to the bus. The air conditioning isn't always great on the bus.
Yeah, that's for sure. And if you're, suited up, my one friend would call it that when he was hosting. He's like, "Are you suited up tonight? Gonna do the old closer?" So yeah, I did it for a long time, and I brought it back a little bit just with everything that's going on. So I've donned the tights again, but I don't plan. I'm just doing it as sort of not a one-off, but a fun video clip.
Yeah, because when I saw the Hippie Man's plans for America, I was like, because people are probably tired of hearing me say this on my show, but one of the things I love about this is getting to Google friends and people that I know. And so when I started Googling you, it's the first one comes up from 2007 was the first Hippie Man's plans for America. So then when I saw one of the videos, I was like, that's not from 2007. So it's kind of, because you were wearing the mask and stuff, and I was like, man. So I kind of surprised me that you brought it back, but it makes sense when you say it. Like it gives you something to do during the quarantine, right? Like if they're in lockdown, you're like, all right, I can do this. Yeah,
and that's the same thing with that live stream. I mean, I don't know, we get like 150, 200 people watching it, but it does. I mean, I've learned how to write a different way because it's visual,
Right.
And I mean, it's like what those guys are doing on late night. There's a picture above me, and I talk, over my shoulder, and I talk about it. And so I'm not making any money doing that, but I don't even care. I'm learning a whole different skill set. I'm doing it with my friend who's also a Denver comic, Eugene Kenny.
Mm-hmm.
Who's producing it.
Eugene's great.
Yeah, and he's a co-host of it. But I feel like I say, I'm learning a whole new skill set, which is good.
Yeah, one of my favorite segments that you do on there, and you haven't done it in a while. So I'm just going to come out and ask it. What makes bad clip art?
Oh,
you do this section, the segment called Bad Clip Art, and it's just like the weirdest shit. So like, where are you finding those, and what's your main criteria for something being bad clip art?
Well, it's funny because I don't know if you remember Circuit City. If you remember,
I do.
It was like Best Buy, right?
Yeah.
So they closed, and they had a huge sale. And so this was when CDs and stuff were still, somewhat viable or viable. And so I went into Circuit City, and I picked up like a 3-disc set of the Supremes, Motown samplers, all kinds of different CDs. They were like super duper cheap. They were like, 2 or 3 disc sets. But then they had like this discounted CD-ROM bin. And so there was this, and I was already doing some internet stuff back then. There was a thing called Media TV that did TV over the internet for a while. And I would do a segment for Hippie Man's Plan for America. So I was using Clipart in that, doing this kind of the same thing. But anyway, I bought this CD-ROM, they called it Click Art, but it was 40,000 images.
Holy crap.
So I just, I can search through that. And since I bought it, I'm using it on this show. But what makes bad clip art? It's weird things. Like for me, it's the face a lot. It looks like the artist just gets sloppy and they put a line here and a line there and a line there for a nose. It doesn't even really look like a face,
Yeah.
And like one of the ones, because I did actually bring it back for this last episode on Monday, there was a horse with like a trowel laying bricks and building a wall. And my criteria is, who is going to use that? You know what I mean? Is a bricklayer going to use that in his PowerPoint presentation, or some guy who has a horse that can lay bricks? I mean, I don't know. So stuff like that,
Yeah, I watched a little bit of that one yesterday. That's what made me think about it. Because the one after that was a doll head with a thought bubble that just said, "I have no head," or something like that. Did you put the thought bubble on there, or did that thought bubble come with it?
No, I put the thought bubble on it. But yeah, that doll, it was just a doll's head.
Just a doll.
Literally that much of the neck. So yeah, that's what I do. And then I've been doing dirty clip art too. And what I take a lot of liberties with the clip art, because in PowerPoint you can add shapes. You're limited to what things you can add. But like I had, there was one of, again, it was like, but this was under dirty clip art, but it could also be bad clip art. It was a bear in bed sleeping with a blanket over it. So I just made an oval, the same color, as the blanket, and made it look like the bear had a boner under the blanket. So, I take some liberties with it, but yeah, that's the main thing. I look and go, who would use this, and
right.
And that's, to me, is bad clip art.
Do you have a favorite segment on your stream right now, or does it just kind of depend on the day?
No, I do have a favorite. It's the puppet show. Like we do I do a puppet show, and I don't have the mask with me, but it's just like a Lone Ranger mask. I put it on and I don't hide. Then I have these puppets and I just act it out. But it's funny because they're like dollar store dolls, but they look like G.I. Joes and Barbies and stuff. They're just really cheap plastic, So I was using those, and then I found a turkey baster. So I had this huge turkey baster and a G.I. Joe doll impregnating one of the other dolls. And so then I was like, well, I need a baby. And I had a weird little ceramic goose. So I had this Barbie doll, or it looked like Snow White, had a goose baby. And that's become a big part of the show, man. I do these puppet shows about the goose baby and stuff. And we get a lot of comments on those.
Are you and Eugene writing that out, or are you just improvising that as you go?
It's mostly improv. I mean, now we've got such a storyline. There's one character named Janitor Jim, which is really funny because I actually created that character, and then I, like a fool, I signed away the rights. I was in a sketch pilot, and I did Hippie Man, and I told him, I go, I'm not going to do Hippie Man if I have to sign, So I still have Hippie Man, but I created this character during the, we all wrote and everything, named Janitor Jim, and I signed it away. And I don't think the producer is even doing anything right now. But so I use this character Janitor Jim, and then I have a brother. His brother is named Jack Jim because the last name of the family is Jim. And so it just, now there's enough of a storyline between the two brothers, the goose baby, that I'll go into it just thinking about, well, what are the beats that I want to hit on this story? Like I had the Snow White is the mother of the goose baby, and I had Malibu Barbie kidnap the goose baby one episode. So then the next episode, I had to get the goose baby back. So, but I didn't really write it down. I just thought about how I wanted to do it and then kind of wing it.
So I have to know, did you have to go get the Malibu Barbie, or did you have a Malibu Barbie already?
I had it wasn't actually a Malibu Barbie, but it was a dollar store knockoff, and I had it because I just have a box full of props, of weird props and stuff. And there's another show. I don't know. Did you ever do the Boulder Comedy Show? Have you done that one or no?
A long time ago, but yeah.
Yeah. So, and I live in Boulder, and so Brent Gill, the guy who runs that, will use me like if there's a fallout. I told him I'm happy to just do like a 10-minute set if I can do more of them. So then for one of the anniversary shows, I did a show in the alley, and there's this big window. I stood on a milk crate in the alley, did the show through the window. They brought a mic stand over and put it up there, and did the show through the window for the people in the club. And that's where I was using a lot of the dolls and stuff then.
Yeah.
And then the next year they actually put up like iron, grate, because people they weren't not for the comedy show, but they do music there too. People were sneaking through that window to get into the club. So now the next time I did that window show, I made hangers and hung stuff up on the iron, So, but that's why I had the Malibu Barbie, because I was doing the window show.
I love some of the eccentric stuff that you do. I remember one of my favorite things, you guys did this right after I actually left Denver. I don't know if it was Comedy Works or who put it together, but somebody put a calendar together, and it was like you and Vic Alejandro and Josh Blue and Vogel, I think, was in it, and Harrison, Deacon, I think, was in it.
Yeah.
And there was not a lot of clothes.
Yeah, that's for sure. That was actually Comedy Works, and I think Matt Vogel really had a lot to do with the production of it.
Yeah.
But there was Lori Callahan was in a tub full of Lucky Charms with milk in it.
That's right.
Yeah, and I was in a dumpster without a shirt on, and I was supposedly eating like barbecue chicken or something, which is funny because I'm a vegetarian. But they were like, "Are you cool with holding these?" I was like, "I don't care," But I wonder how long ago that was. That was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. I have to tell you the story. I don't know if I told you the story, if you heard it. I'm going to tell it to you, and then I'll double check with Matt, and if it needs to come out, I'll take it out. But when I was back visiting Deacon, it was me, Matt Vogel, Brandon Shevin, Vic Alejandro, and Clint Raines or Harrison. I knew him way back when he was Clint. I've never been able to call him Harrison. Anyway, we're talking about all the different shows and stuff, just kind of reminiscing. And Vogel goes into this story where it was him and I think it was Roger, is it Norquist or
Roger Rittenhouse?
Yeah, I think it was Roger Rittenhouse. It was Roger, I think it was Rittenhouse. So Bob Saget was coming through Denver and wanted a guitar. So Matt Vogel reached out to Clint and said, "Hey, Saget's coming through and needs a guitar. Can we borrow your guitar?" And Clint says, "Sure." Gives it to him. And he says, "Just have Saget sign it for me." He's like, "Great." So Saget signs it, and he signs it his name, and he says, "I'm glad this guitar finally made people laugh." And they give it back to Clint. And so Clint's kind of like, well, that's kind of a dick thing for Bob to write on there. So this was 15 years ago. So we're sitting around hanging out. Clint had told that story over the last 15 years, probably 10, 12 times. And that story comes up and Vogel goes, "I have to tell you Bob Saget signed the guitar, and then me and Roger wrote that on it.
Man.
To see Clint's face of just like, fuck. And like, we all just lose it and start cracking up. Because it's just like, how could you keep that for like 15 years from somebody?
Man, that's wild. And what a time to tell him.
Right, exactly. But it was funny. I was impressed that a story could stay that hush hush for so long, because that's kind of. But I always felt bad. I felt bad for Clint too, because he was just like, yeah, I thought Bob was kind of a dick, but it wasn't him. It was Matt and Roger.
Yeah, to think that he was a dick for that long, man. It's crazy.
I know, right? It's crazy. Yeah, because I've never heard anybody really say anything bad about Saget. Like he's like every comic I know that's worked with him has always said he's just an incredibly nice guy to be around.
Yeah, I've never worked with him, but I've never heard anything bad or weird about the guy,
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things too, kind of going back to the hippie man stuff a little bit, were you raised by hippies? Were your parents hippies?
I mean, no, kind of in a way. My father died when I was really young. I barely remember my father. I was like 6 years old. But my mom grew up in Colorado, and I wouldn't call her a hippie. I would in some sense, but she was like, when she found out, even when I was like a 17-year-old in high school, and she found out I smoked weed, she was like super pissed and disappointed. So, but she had a lot of different tendencies that I would consider to be almost hippie-like. Like she really loved the outdoors. She'd go for for cussing. She'd go for walks and stuff. Yeah. With my uncle, and they would go on hikes and, look for artifacts. And not that hippies necessarily do that, but I mean, she was really loved the outdoors and stuff. So, no, I guess not really a hippie. I have a joke about I was raised by hippies, but yeah, she was. And I mean, man, like I say, when she found out I smoked weed, she was pissed, which is funny because I have an older brother and sister. And man, my sister was like way more, into drugs than me.
Yeah.
I mean, she wasn't doing heroin and shit, but she was doing more than weed.
Yeah. Well, who hasn't?
Yeah. I did a little more than weed along the way myself.
Yeah, I have as well. Are your brother and sister still close? Do they put off the same kind of vibe that you do, that kind of laid back, relaxed vibe? And are they vegetarian like you as well?
They're not vegetarian. And yeah, they're pretty mellow. It's funny though, because my brother, I guess he got that from my mom. He is an outdoorsman. He still goes on, like, he's got a friend in northern Colorado, and they'll go to Montana and do like 4-day, 5-day backpacking trips and stuff. And he's a big fly fisherman. I'm the total opposite of that. I like to go outside, but I'm not a camper, man. Camping doesn't appeal to me. If I hike, it's got to be, not too long of a hike. I don't want to say I'm a wuss, but it just isn't my thing. And we've joked about that for years because, I mean, we're like polar opposites that way. But they're both pretty mellow, And no, neither one's a vegetarian, and neither one of them uses any kind of recreational drugs now. I'm carrying that torch for the Novasad family.
Well, you carry it well. Are
Thanks.
you a sativa, or are you an indica guy, or does it kind of depend on the mood?
Well, I'll preface it this way. I was a total sativa guy, and I still am. I'm a sativa guy. Even when I use indicas, I go up here. I always go up here in my head. You know what I mean? No matter what the strain is. So when I was smoking, and I haven't smoked weed since March. I've just been doing edibles, just because I'm like, this is a respiratory thing. Should I really be putting smoke in my lungs? And I mean, I'm up there. I'm not totally in the at risk age group, but I'm getting closer to that. So I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to smoke pot. I remember the last day I smoked weed was March 10th. But I have edibles, and I'm usually like 10 milligrams a day. I'm a lightweight when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I prefer sativas. And, before I stopped, when we were still doing shows and stuff, I love doing shows high, man. I get a mix
Really?
of, yeah, I get a mix of what I would normally do is like if I was doing a set at the club in Denver, if I had an 8 o'clock show, I would go smoke, 3 or 4 hits
Yeah.
around 6:30 and go to the club, get a beer. Sounds like I'm dependent on drugs and alcohol, but then what I would do is go back outside, like maybe a half an hour before the show started, and take one more little booster hit. And it's surprising to me because I went 15 years I'd smoke weed during the day, but never for a show.
Yeah.
But for the last 10 or so, I've done it. And what's surprising to me about it is I take way more risks when I'm high, which seems counterintuitive to me. I won't just say anything, but I'll something will pop in my mind, and I'm more likely to say it when I'm high.
Have you noticed a flow and easier to remember material, or the set that you want to do between the two? Do you follow that? Because you do a lot of festivals too, and I kind of wanted to talk to you about that. When you're doing the festivals, are you smoking before that? And do you approach those as it's competition because you're trying to make it to the next round or whatnot? Or do you just say, hey, I'm just here as a show and I'm going to do my thing and that's what it is?
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple of different things. If I'm in a competition, like before Laughing Skull, now Laughing Skull is just that's a festival in Atlanta. It's just a festival, but it was a competition, and I think in 2016 I won it. Yeah, I mean, I approached those competitions totally different. Like I almost record every set anyway, even if it's just audio. But in a competition, and you got to look at the rules and stuff. But I try not to repeat material because I think that makes a difference, and some won't let you do it. So what I'll do if I'm in a competition, say it's like 3 rounds or whatever. Say you have to go 2 rounds to get to the finals. The first set, if I advance, I mean, even if I don't advance, I'll probably listen to it. But if I advance, I'll listen to that set and write out the set list. And then I have like a master list of sets, of jokes, And so I'll draw a line through the jokes that I did in that first set and then look and see what I've got for that second set. And when I won that Atlanta contest, I did the first set and I think I took 4th in that round. But I was like, all right, I'm in the running here. So I listened to that set, drew a line through, and then, I mean, just like just staring at me was like a really strong opener that I hadn't used yet. So that second set, I used that opener and then I put together my set and I advanced to the finals. And then I did the same thing with the finals. And that was a little bit scary because then I was like, well, now I'm getting into, material that, I mean, it's still good material, but somebody told me, I think it was even in Atlanta, that there was a guy, in a different year, a comic was protected material and then got knocked out in the second round and it saved all that material for the finals, So I was like, damn, if nothing else, I got to make it to the final. And then I figured out that set. But I'm sorry, it's such a long answer. But if I'm if it's a festival where it's just kind of for fun, I'll kind of do what I want. I don't think about it too much. I have an idea what I'm going to do. And then, like, as far as weed goes, if it's a fun festival, for sure, man, I'll smoke. And then usually at festivals, there's a ton of comics who smoke, and it's a really social thing. But like
what
in
about
Atlanta,
a contest? Would you smoke at a contest, though?
Atlanta, I didn't until the last night. And then on the finals, but I was like really I was super careful. I did like maybe 2 hits an hour before and then do a booster bit, So yeah, if it's a big showcase for something, or a contest, I'm not
Mhm.
I'm not going to smoke. And if I do, it'll be really just a small amount.
Yeah. How much has the scene? I mean, you've only been in the Denver comedy scene, right? I mean, like, because you haven't lived anywhere else. You've been out there the whole
Yeah.
time. I know it's changed a lot just since I was out there, the early 2000s. I always thought it was real friendly. Everybody was real great, help each other. My issue with it was always there weren't that many rooms to work on stuff. There was very few rooms to go work on stuff. There was like one up and maybe one in Boulder. There were a couple little places, one or two open mics. And then you also had to drive so far to start getting paid gigs, like, what was it, Jeff Harms that used to book up in Gillette and I forget who, Spearfish and all of that stuff. Is that still pretty much the case, or are there a lot more, I don't know, I think people call them like showcase rooms and that kind of stuff. Is there a lot more work in the area now, so it's easier to stay local?
I mean, there's a lot of stage time in Denver, or there was, and hopefully there will be again. But you can't, I don't know anybody who's making a living just in Denver or even in the region. And you bring up a good point about, Gillette was like 4.5 to 5 hours away. I mean,
right.
The biggest challenge about being based in Colorado, if you're a road comic, a working comic, is geographically you're isolated. I mean, Salt Lake City is probably the closest full-time room, or Omaha, Nebraska. But I mean, Wyoming, it's all one-nighters, and there's not much there anyway. And New Mexico, I guess there's a little bit of a scene in New Mexico now, but I don't think there's a full-time room. So that's one of the biggest things. But before the pandemic, I mean, when I was home, and I would go out on the weekends 2 or 3 times a month out of state, But when I was home, I could get on stage between the comedy works and then I call them the younger comics or the cool kids, and I don't mean it in a bad way.
Sure.
But they had so much stage time, so many shows that are showcased, and they pay a little bit. But I was honored, because they asked me, and I'm an older comic, and I've done a ton of those shows. And, they give you like 20 or 40 bucks, which I didn't feel bad about because I've got eyes. And I mean, if I felt like one of those people was making like 300 bucks, booking the show and paying the talent like 75 bucks total, I wouldn't do it. But you can look around. I mean, you're in a weird little bar. It's like these people aren't making money producing this show, And then, so I always say it this way, and I don't mean this in a bad or derogatory way, but, because I know some comics who are like, damn, dude, they're using you. And I always go, they're using me, but I'm using them because I'm paying attention to what the hell I'm doing. I'll go and take that stage time. Like I say, if I think it's legit and they're not ripping me off, I'll work those rooms when I'm in Denver. What the hell? What am I going to stay at home and watch, bad TV? But they're using me. I'm using them because I'm working on stuff. I'm getting stronger. I'm getting to be a better comic. That's how I know after all this time, I mean, all the time that I've done it, that I still want to do it because I'm driven, to go do those shows because there's something of value there for me that isn't monetary,
Do you enjoy going and doing those sets just as much or maybe even more than flying out to the Funny Bone and the middle of Kansas or something and headlining a 45-minute set?
Yeah, I mean, in a way I do, just because obviously to go headline a club and fly out, you're going to make more money. And that's not the most important thing, but you obviously got to make money doing it.
Sure.
But from a standpoint of just the pure joy of doing stand-up, yeah, I love, the Denver scene, and I love to go to a showcase in a little theater or a little bar where I know the comics and like you were saying earlier, it's a pretty good scene. People are, for the most part, supportive. And also from a standpoint of, the performance, I just don't have that pressure on me of like having to cover 50 minutes, no matter what, on a Friday second show in Kansas City where everybody's drunk and they're heckling and shit, and you just figure out a way to do it. I mean, those are really good skill sets to have. But from a standpoint of just pure fun, yeah, man, go and do a weird 10-minute set.
Yeah, and that's the thing with what's going on right now, with like the quarantine, the lockdown, and everything is like the bigger clubs are going to come back in some way, right? Like comedy's coming back, right? It's gonna make its way back. Who knows what it looks like? Who knows? But it's gonna make its way back. My concern is, I love those little black box theater places too.
Yeah.
But when those open back up, I mean, they only hold somewhere between 20 and 40 people anyway. If you add in social distancing where you got to keep 6 feet away, I mean, you've got 12 people in there now. Can they, I don't get me wrong, I would go perform for those 12 people because it's what I do and I love it. But is that a sustainable model?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it is, unless they're getting something, and I don't know, what the Small Business Association or what sort of loans are available for places like that, and what this, if there's some sort of help from the government to keep things afloat. I think, there's going to be a bunch of stuff that closes comedy-wise, and I just think entertainment-wise. You make a good point, I mean, like one of the things I've heard, not even necessarily about comedy, is that for some of these, like for restaurants and stuff, they're doing 25% capacity, 50% capacity, and having it all social distance and everything. And I mean, you do that in a comedy club, like you say, even if it's 200 seats, and you're cutting that in half or by 75%, how are people going to make money,
Right.
And then does that mean that the pay to the comics, obviously there's some comics that, the upper echelon comics are going to get their money no matter what.
Sure.
But what about, what about me, Al Franken? But, a guy like me, I mean, I'm a headliner, but I'm not a draw. I don't sell tickets. So what's that going to, come down to if some club makes me an offer and says, well, with social distancing and stuff, the most we can have in here is 100 seats as opposed to 300,
Right. Yeah. There's so many things that like people don't think about. Like I was talking to a friend not too long ago who knows somebody down at the Chicago Symphony and Orchestra. And one of the things that like I wasn't even thinking about, and I'm sure most people haven't, take how many people they can get out of there and everything, think about where the orchestra sits. Those musicians are on top of each other down in the pit or sitting right next to each other up on the stage. They're not 6 feet away. They're blowing everything from the deepest part of their diaphragm and lungs out into these wood. And then 25% of those people are international musicians that make a living travel the world. So like, how does that bounce back? Like, how is that going to look? Like,
that's the
super
thing,
weird.
Because I think too, I mean, I don't know, that's a good question. And also, even when things come back, I've got to ask myself, do I don't think I'm just going to jump back in. I'm lucky. I don't have a lot of money, but I've saved up a little bit of money. I've got a little bit of a cushion so that I can kind of pick my shot a little better. But I mean, I still am going to need to go back to work here. But that said, when it first comes out, and people are coming back, I'm going to think long and hard, especially because I'm a public transportation guy, like you said. So factor in a
Right.
bus ride and a train ride
Exactly.
to get to the club to
Yeah.
do 20 minutes. I I don't want to be paranoid, but
Well, no, but everyone's different. It's like in the last episode that I recorded last night, I was talking to my buddy Jonesy. He went down and did a show in Orange County. He's wearing a mask. The waitresses. That's it. And what it comes down to in a situation like that, he's not married, doesn't have any kids. I'm married. I have 4 kids. And he can take that gig for 50 or $100 or whatever. And it's kind of sketchy and it's shitty, but can I risk what I have at the house, for $50? Like that's not a chance I can take. Right.
yeah, I understand that totally. I mean, it's changed, it's changed the paradigm. It's changed the dynamics of it. Like I said
Yeah.
earlier, I would gladly go down, take the bus down to Denver, go hang out in Denver, get a beer, go to a coffee shop before the show, write, go do a show, even if it wasn't at the Comedy Works, which is my home club, but at one of these little indie rooms, and make $20 or $40 or whatever it is. And I'd be like, all right, well, cool. I worked on my show, whatever. But now, like you say, it's like, well, I got to wear a mask. I'm going to be on the bus. Should I wear latex gloves? You know what I mean? Right. Just going to get the mail has turned into like, well, I've got to quarantine this mail for a day, or you know what I mean? And so, again, I don't want to be like, you got to live your life, but you also have to, it changes the way you make decisions for sure.
Oh yeah. They're gonna change it up a little bit, try and take it back to a happy place. You had mentioned Comedy Works and being your home club, which is a fantastic club. I'd always say Comedy Works is a top 5 club in the country. But I want to talk about another club, Wits End. I missed that club. That was kind of a cool. Yeah, I worked at it before they moved out of the Westminster Strip Mall over there. I didn't work. They moved it, but that was a cool little club. What kind of happened with that? If you don't mind talking about it, or if was it just numbers was down, just in general? Was it being poorly run by new management, or that's always just kind of a fun place, especially for people who are coming up. It was a really good club to kind of cut your teeth a little bit, so that you could go down to Comedy Works and try and get into the big club.
Yeah, I love that room, man. I got so much work done in that room. And since I was a local guy, what they would do is headline me once a week, and then like 6 months later, feature me. Mm-hmm. So that was like 2 weeks, 2 weekends that I could work, make a little money, and sleep in my own bed. And it was a good room. I think what happened was, there was a couple different changes of ownership. And I don't know, in my opinion, the last person who owned it had a background in nightclubs, but didn't in comedy clubs. Yeah. And so I think it was just the numbers tailed off. They didn't maintain the party list where, hey, you and your friends have won 20 free tickets. It was all paper, most of it was paper giveaways at Wits End, and that's the way it is at a lot of comedy clubs. They give away the tickets and make the money at the bar. But I just remember the last time I worked that room, someone from the club texted me. This is kind of mean to say, but they texted me like 3:30 in the afternoon. This was a Thursday of the first night of the weekend. And they said, there's not going to be a show tonight. We don't have enough ticket sales. And I texted them back and said, okay, thanks for letting me know. But I thought to myself, who cancels a show, an 8:00 show at 3:30 in the afternoon, man?
Right.
And it moved to a different strip mall. So there's not a lot of walk up, but I would at least give it a chance to get 15 people in there,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I love those shows too. Like those, like on a Friday, Saturday night, the place is packed. Everyone's there to have a good time. Those are, I hate to say it, but those are easy shows, right? Like I like those, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night shows when there's 10, 12, 15 people and you're like, oh, I'm doing 20 minutes. Great. I'll bring 45 minutes worth of material with me because I'm getting ready to work. Like, to me, not only are those fun shows to do, they're also really fun shows to go and watch. I always try and go out and watch a show on one of those middle of the week because they're fun to watch a comedian. Not that you're not working on a Friday or Saturday night, but it's great to watch them like kind of work and try new stuff out and really go at it and hone their craft.
Yeah, for sure. And I always tell new comics, like if you have a good relationship at whatever club it is that's in your town and you can go and watch shows for free, go there on like a Wednesday or Thursday and watch the headliner, and then go watch the headliner a second time if you have time, and watch them on like a Friday second show, where they're, like I said earlier, they're a little bit drunk or whatever. But yeah, it's fun to, like you say, to even watch a show like that. Or like Sunday nights, man, see a big headliner after a weekend, 2 shows Friday, 2 shows Saturday, and then watch them on a Sunday night. And they're not screwing around, but it's a little looser and,
Right.
They're working out stuff.
Yeah. Do you watch a lot of comedy at home or on the tube, or are you just almost strictly an in-person type of guy?
I should. And with all this time, you would think I'd watch more comedy, but I really don't. I don't watch, there's so many Netflix specials that I should watch and don't. And I mean, I don't know if Netflix is the gold standard now, but it's pretty high up there, I guess. Yeah, I never have. And I mean to watch more, but I get sidetracked watching other weird stuff,
Yeah, it's funny. I haven't watched as much comedy during all of this as I should, but I did go back the other day for some odd reason and start listening to Martin Mull. I forgot how funny he was back in in the 70s, coming up into the 80s. Like, God, he was funny, man. I miss a lot of that old stuff.
Yeah, he was great. Well, when after Fred Willard passed away, man, he was brilliant. But Martin Mull had that show, Fernwood Tonight, America Tonight, and Fred Willard was like the second banana on that, man. So that put me back there. But yeah, Martin Mull is amazing. And he would tour with, like, he have a set, like a couch and a lamp, and they'd set all that up on stage. He'd sit on the couch and play the guitar a little bit. And at least one of the things I saw, he did that. But yeah, he's super funny, man. He's great.
Yeah, I love going back and listening to old stuff like that. So I got one other thing. I interviewed a couple days ago a friend of mine that's really funny, Rena Calm, and when I was Googling her and looking her up, I saw that not only her but you were on the Jaguar Morning Show.
Oh, yeah.
So she told me what her experience was on the Jaguar Morning Show. What was yours? What was your segment? Do you remember?
I don't even remember. Did you see it?
I didn't see it. I couldn't find it. I couldn't find any of the episodes. Like, I found a list of all the episodes, but I couldn't find any to watch.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly what my segment was, but there's 2 people that I remember, Andy Jewett and another guy named Jay Gillespie were the ones who came up with the Jaguar Morning Show. And if I'm forgetting someone else, I apologize. But they would do it at like, if it was at Denver Open Media, but it was something like that, like a cable access or open media.
Cable access.
Yeah, studio. And we did it. It was called the Jaguar Morning Show, right? Or was it just the Jaguar Show?
The Jaguar Morning Show.
Yeah. So, like, I went down to Denver early in the morning. I think I got down there at like 7:30. And one of the things I remember is, like, they had a little dance number. So we had a green screen behind us, and they had some weird backdrop, and we were all dancing. And they brought in, it was like a variety show. So they would have, someone talk about whatever, sewing, maybe have a dancer and then a comic. And I think I might have even done a little set. But then everybody comes together and we're all dancing and stuff. So it was just a silly, like, parody of, Good Morning America or the Today Show. I think they did the weather and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it was.
Rena was telling me she told me her segment was it was her and somebody else, I forget now, and they were working out and like eating donuts and bagels at the same time.
Yeah, I kind of remember some of that they were. Yeah, there was stuff like that.
Oh. The other thing that I found that came up for you on when I was looking was you were a street correspondent for Accidentally Famous at the HBO Aspen Comedy Festival. How hard was it to get people to come up to you to interview?
Yeah, it was.
And I mean that in the nicest way.
No, it's fine. And a lot of it was, there were these comics that are, some of them, I can't remember names now, but, pretty well-known comics, not like super famous, but they were all in this Accidentally Famous show for Aspen. And so then Comcast actually hired me. I wasn't part of the Aspen Comedy Festival. It was like I was on the outside looking in. I was up there.
Okay.
But I wasn't affiliated with and this was when like HBO was up there and everybody,
Yeah.
So we did Man on the Street stuff, and a lot of it was with the comics who were in the show. But it was so fucking cold up there, man. It was freezing that weekend. I mean, it was during the winter, but even for the winter up there, it was like super cold. So I would get a few people on the street, but people were not interested, to really talk to me too much. So most of it was like interviewing the comics, and the way they cut it was, they'd have a comic. They'd either have me interview the comic and then have the comic do the live thing, or they'd have it afterwards. But I talked to a few people. But yeah, people in general, even if I'm wearing a coat and have a stick mic, they're still going to be a little skeptical coming up to me. I'm not famous enough to where they'd be like, "Oh, the hippie guy with the weird eye. I want to go talk to him."
Yeah, they probably think you're trying to sell them some weed.
Yeah, exactly. Either something illegal or trying to get them to a weird timeshare or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's more of a dude ranch timeshare.
Yeah, exactly, man. You like sleeping in bunk beds?
Exactly. So, hey, before I let you go, I have this little segment that I do that's called Ambush. And what this is in this envelope are some words that my 10-year-old and 9-year-old daughter have written down.
All right.
I have no idea what is in here, what they've written down. So,
do they know that they're doing this for your podcast?
They do, yeah.
Okay. I just wondered.
Right. I'm pretty sure they're going to make me give them producer credits at some point.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, yeah, and they always ask me the next day, like, what words did you get? So I have no idea what's in here. We'll pull them out and we'll talk about them for a little bit and see how it goes.
Okay.
All right. So the first thing that they have is staying at home. Staying at home. Before all of this happened, before the quarantine and the lockdown, were you a fan of being at home, or I know you weren't like you said, you weren't like a big outdoorsy guy going in, but do you cook or do you order in? Like, what kind of do you like to stay at home and do that type of stuff?
I mean, I can cook a little bit. But yeah, I've always been sort of a homebody. It's sort of I wouldn't say it's a paradox necessarily, but like if I had my druthers, I would rather be home than go out on the road. I mean, I can do it and travel, and sometimes I've had a blast. I've done some really cool stuff, but it's not, I look at the travel, it's part of the business of doing it. And if I do something cool along the way, that's great. But even, like I was in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I did a festival right before all this started, like the first part of March. And I mean, it was cold in Grand Rapids. So, but I was there for like 3 or 4 days. I did go to the Gerald Ford Presidential Museum only because it was literally 2 blocks away from where I was staying. So I went that one afternoon. But lots of times on the road, I'm cool with just hanging,
Yeah,
So
you'll just stay in a hotel room and go out
yeah, I
for
mean, I'll
food.
get out a little bit, but I also in the back of my mind is always the show. So I'm like
Right.
thinking about not that I've got to be, you know, pristine for this performance, but there's also a part of me that's like, if I really go out and do a whole bunch of stuff, I got to do 2 shows tonight. I mean, I want to keep that in the back of my mind. But yeah, I'm sort of a homebody, so I'm not like this much of a homebody for sure. Staying home like this is
Yeah.
kooky.
Yeah. I've always been like I enjoy my couch, but I like to be out doing something, like
Yeah.
but what's been great about this quarantine is I've always been the cook. I always make all of the dinners.
Hmm.
And so now I've expanded what I can make, which has been kind of nice. So
Yeah, that's cool. I don't mind cooking. I like to cook.
are you cooking now through the quarantine, or are you ordering out?
Oh no, I'm totally cooking through the quarantine. I can't remember the last
Yeah.
time I ordered out.
And we've
So
got some good places around here that are like local places that I
mhm.
want to make sure stay open. So it's not like every week or anything by any means. But like every couple of weeks, we'll order from a different place just to be like,
Yeah,
all right, we'll give you, I mean, we're feeding 6 of us, so it's usually a pretty good bill, which is also a
yeah,
reason we don't go out to eat that much. Even when we're not in quarantine, it's not not
yeah.
cheap to feed 6 people.
No, I should do that more with some of the local businesses too. Get some takeout. One thing I was thinking about this today, man. One thing I really miss is I would go out for breakfast just by myself, like once a
Mhm.
week. And I'm an early riser. I don't sleep much, so I would go out at like 7:30 in the morning, even buy a
Yeah.
paper or take my comedy notebook with me, and get some eggs or whatever, and have some coffee. And I miss that. And I mean, I guess you can start doing that again now, or soon I'll be able to do that again. But
Yeah.
that kind of stuff is hard.
Do you obviously, like, when you're out on the road and stuff, you do a lot of stuff by yourself. Are you a movie guy, and will you go to like a movie theater by yourself? Just real quick, me personally, I love going to a movie by myself, but
Yeah, I don't mind going to movies by myself at all. And I'll do that sometimes on the road. I haven't gone to that many movies lately, but yeah, I don't have a problem going by myself at all. In fact, I like that.
yeah, I like going. That's like good quality, like me time.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
all right, let's see what else we got here. Oh, that's interesting.
Moving.
Moving. Yeah. How long have you been in the place you're at now? And
Man,
moving.
I've been here for like 12 years.
Wow.
Uh, I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. Hold on a sec. And yeah, and that sort of goes along with, you know, the whole homebody thing. I'm happy here. Although my lease is up again in August. So we'll see. I just paid the rent today. My landlords are pretty cool. But in the back of my mind, I'm always like, when the lease is coming up, if they're going to make a change, it would suck to have to move right now. But, I'll deal with it if I do.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the moving, especially we just got so much stuff. Like, although I like the one thing I do like when we have moved is it's a good way to be like, we're getting rid of some crap. Like it's
Yeah.
time to clean it out.
Well, my
So
apartment right now is really cluttered because I moved a bunch of stuff around, you know, to create
mhm.
like a little quarantine area for my groceries or whatever. I took a bunch of stuff out of the closet. So I've got stuff stacked up, but I need to just go through and get rid of stuff too.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because you're like, oh, I think I have time to do that now, and then you realize, oh, it's not the having the time that makes me not do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I'm amazed. I am amazed. Yeah, that's a really good point. It's not the not having the time.
Yeah,
There's a
just
whole
know what
different set
it's
of factors in there.
exactly. All right. Oh, I got one more, and we already covered it. Making dinner.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so, so we already covered that. You said you are cooking. What? Real quick, favorite thing to make, favorite dinner to cook for yourself.
It's funny, but I really like lima beans, man. I love cooking lima beans. I don't even do them like in the Instapot. I don't have an Instapot, but or the quick method. I'll soak them overnight, cook them, low for 2 hours. I really like that. The other thing, and I was never a tofu fan, but I've really become a fan of oven roasted tofu and using like barbecue sauce and brushing that on there, and then doing it like, you cook it for 45 minutes to maybe an hour at the most, but a couple different times I'll pull the tofu out, brush it up again with barbecue sauce, and it's really good. I think the thing about tofu is you really have to cook it with something that it can absorb the flavor, because otherwise it's just like eating, I don't know, an eraser,
I think one of my favorite vegetable dishes to cook is I'll get 2 or 3 heads of cauliflower, and I'll cut them like steaks, probably about 2 inches thick.
Oh yeah.
Cover them in olive oil, salt, pepper, a little bit of garlic, maybe some oregano or something, and let it seep down in all of the crevices and whatnot. Turn the grill on high, or you can even do it in just a frying pan and just cook it for like 4 or 5 minutes on each side. Nice little grilled cauliflower. Oh, it's so good. So
I'll have to try that. I've never done that. And I like cauliflower too.
Yeah, it's easy and tasty. So
that's cool.
Well, John, thanks so much for sitting down and talking with me. It's great to see you, and good to know that you're healthy and well. Is there any websites or any Instagram or anything that you want to promote?
You can go. I still have hippieman.com.
Nice.
So, excuse me. You can go there.
Okay.
And there's links to my Facebook and Instagram and stuff. And if you search Hippie Comic, you'll find me that way too. But yeah, hippieman.com.
And then you've got the afternoon stream at 3 p.m. on Mountain on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's you and Eugene Kinney. I haven't seen him in a while, so it was good to see him popping up every now and then. He pops up on a couple of segments. So
he's great.
Yeah.
And real quick, it's funny the way that all came about. I posted on Facebook. Excuse me. I go, one of these days, I'm going to get drunk and just speak my mind on a live stream. Just made a joke on Facebook. And then he messaged me and he goes, do you really want to do a live stream? So we started talking, because he has software and, has a studio in his home that I can just beam to him, and then he beams back out. So yeah, we just started. And I think, God, we've probably done like 35 of them or something. So
yeah, it's crazy. You forget how long we've been locked down until, like, I was talking to somebody the other day that they do this thing for Zanies here in Chicago called Cell Block Z. I was like, those are really cool. I've watched a handful of them, and she's like, we've done 60 of them. And it's just like, oh my God. Like,
that's wild, man.
Yeah, it's literally been that long.
That's crazy, man.
It is crazy. Well, like I said, thanks for stopping by, hanging out. I'm glad you're healthy, and you look at least John Novasad level sane. So
yeah,
I'll take
it. I'm hanging in there.
All right. Thanks. We'll see you soon, John.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. It's great to see you. Thanks for having me on.